No other conflict saw as many paratroopers deployed as World War II. On the day of the largest amphibious operation in history, about 155,000 soldiers landed in Normandy, including 23,000 paratroopers. This is impressive if we consider that they were transported from England to France, crossing the impenetrable wall of German anti-aircraft defenses. Then they were deployed directly behind enemy lines, with the mission, of course, to cause chaos and cut off the enemy's supplies. Today, we won't just discuss these paratroopers, but we'll focus on a unique and crucial part of their gear, a strange bag they carried between their legs. Ever wonder what this bag was? Parachute part or something else? What's most intriguing about it? Why is this bag considered one of the most infamous pieces of equipment of the entire Second World War? So make yourself comfortable. My name is Kevin Aguilar, and this is Guns Club. Paratrooper operations were always something complicated, even before the Second World War. One of the big challenges was how to transport the paratroopers' equipment efficiently. Paratroopers in particular need to carry more equipment than usual because they are deployed behind the enemy's defensive lines. They don't know when they'll be resupplied again, so having plenty of ammunition and supplies is vital for their mission. Before 1943, much of this equipment was dropped in containers for paratroopers. The British and Germans used this method because it was extremely simple. Was it problematic? Well, honestly, a little bit. When the paratroopers landed, they had to look for those containers, often in hostile territory and without knowing exactly where they were. Meanwhile, they were completely exposed and not ready to fight immediately. This system, although useful in some cases, turned out to be quite dangerous and impractical. There are records of some deployments where there were even fatal incidents where the containers failed to land properly and were either destroyed or lost entirely, leaving the paratroopers without equipment and vulnerable to the enemy. So in 1943, the British sought a permanent solution to this logistical problem. And that's how the legendary leg bag began. The British plan was for paratroopers to carry all their equipment on their legs, no matter how heavy, without using extra containers. The leg bag was made of tear-resistant canvas, capable of holding 50 kilograms of supplies and equipment. This bag was attached to the legs with straps and had a handle so the soldier could lift it while walking. The concept was brilliant. But how did the paratroopers land with a 50-kilogram bag hanging from their leg? Well, they really didn't. During the jump, the leg bag was released by the paratrooper using a very simple release system. It would then be attached to the parachute by a 6-meter rope. When released, the bag would fall in a controlled manner thanks to a special fabric anti-friction handle that allowed the paratrooper to control the bag's falling speed. The suspended bag had a pendulum effect that helped reduce turbulence and provided great stability in the air. When the bag touched the ground, it became an anchor. This not only slowed down the parachutist, but also made the landing more comfortable by reducing the jolts experienced when touching the ground. Best of all, the bag was always no more than 6 meters away from the landing zone, which prevented it from getting lost. On the other hand, the German parachutists had a rather different approach. Instead of equipping each soldier with a leg bag, as the British did, or with any other supply-carrying equipment, they dropped their parachutists with the minimum equipment needed to fight, and then sent containers with the full weaponry, even including heavy items like flamethrowers. Some of these parachutists even had wheels to make transportation in the field easier. This system was useful at times, but also had drawbacks. The German paratroopers were not equipped for long missions, which put them at a disadvantage compared to the British. They could carry more equipment alone and resupply easily if needed. This is where the controversy starts. While the British leg bag was innovative, its effectiveness has long been debated. If you ask British veterans, they'll tell you it was an extremely functional and ergonomic piece of equipment. But if you ask the Americans, the opinion changes drastically. For many, the leg bag was a disaster and had to be avoided at all costs. But why did they have such radically different opinions about the leg bag? Though the Romandia invasion was planned for over 3 years, the operation still had mistakes. The British already had a year of experience using leg bags, but the American paratroopers received the bags only a day before the landing, without proper training on how to use them. Many soldiers didn't know how to adjust them properly or didn't know how to distribute the weight evenly. As a result, the bags were often overloaded with weight. And to make things worse, the jumping conditions were much more difficult than expected. The intense German anti-aircraft defense forced the planes to fly at a higher speed than normal, which meant that the paratroopers experienced much harder opening shocks than they were used to. This impacted both the parachute and leg bags. In many cases, due to the overweight and the opening shock, the bags came loose or even broke open completely, leaving the paratroopers without their essential equipment instantly. Many American paratroopers had even bigger problems. One example of this was Dick Knudsen, who landed with the leg bag completely stuck to his leg and couldn't free it in the air. This resulted in a much rougher landing than expected. Knudsen suffered a severe pelvic fracture and lay in the field for days before being rescued. In fact, all of these issues were very well depicted in the film Band of Brothers, where Dick Winters experienced an incident losing all his weapons immediately after jumping from the plane. This is what the real Dick Winters said about the leg bag. Plane for takeoff. The airplanes were starting to take evasive action. We were flying far too fast. The opening shock just tore the rope, ripped the rope, and the bag went on its way. Everybody who jumped with one landed with one. So was the leg bag a bad idea? Not necessarily. It was a clever solution to a real logistical problem. But the lack of proper training and the extreme day-to-day conditions caused a lot of problems for the paratroopers, especially for the Americans who had to deal with a much more chaotic situation than they expected. Despite the controversy, the British leg bag represented one of the most serious attempts to solve the leg problem. It also shows how hard it was to deploy on such a scale during intense wartime conditions. What do you think? Would you have preferred the British system or the German one? Do you think the leg bags were a help or an obstacle? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.